NFTs, cloud streaming, and CES all in the same week. It has been a very busy week here in the Xbox world, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the top Xbox stories you may have missed coming up. Hey, I'm Sam with Busy Dad Gaming. I help busy dads with all things Xbox so they can relax and go back to their families recharged. So first up on the docket, we're going to take a look at NFTs and what Square Enix is attempting to do right now. So right now, Square is looking to establish some NFTs using an auction, and they're doing this via NFTs, which is a non-fungible token. And that's basically based on blockchain technology, where each one has its own, essentially certification that it's, legit. Ubisoft, if you'll remember, actually also did something similar when they were doing this. I think it was with Ghost Recon, and if you ended up having like 600 hours, you end up getting this particular NFT, which personally I don't find value in, but when it comes to gaming, this is a new trend that is starting to kind of establish itself within the industry. And I don't know if it's going to really take hold or not. We'll have to wait and see how things actually, permutate through this. But this is, NFTs do have potential, and I can see how they could be leveraged within the gaming industry. But the way that they're doing it today, where you basically, auction off, something with Castlevania, for example, and you go ahead and you do an auction, you say, I want X amount, and they're using a lot of things like Ethereum, for example, through their auctions, and you go ahead and you spend $300 on this particular thing. I personally don't see value in that particular way of going about NFTs, but we'll have to wait and see how the industry adapts and how the market responds to this adaptation. Because when you think of microtransactions as an example, those weren't met with universal acclaim. And I think NFTs are kind of running into that similar boat, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Next up, we're going to take a look at something Samsung just announced here at CES, and they're going to be bringing GeForce Now and Stadia Gaming to their Samsung TVs here in 2022. Now, this is something that has also been an interesting play because Xbox is also trying to do something similar where they're going to the different TV manufacturers and supplying Xbox Game Cloud to those particular TV vendors, kind of in this same vein. So over time, I foresee this happening where you'll end up having all these different kinds of TVs and they'll have all these different streaming options, and you just pick which one is going to make the most sense for you. Now, Samsung is also doing something similar to Ubisoft and Square Enix, where they're supporting NFTs. They're not necessarily selling them, but you can go ahead and display the NFTs that you've purchased on their particular TVs. Now, again, I don't know how much value this is actually going to bring to the market, but it is something that Samsung is starting to push forward with, especially as they're starting to move more into this gaming arena and starting to do more game streaming options. Next up is something, again, that also came out of CES, and that is Fidelity FX Super Resolution. And this is something where AMD announced that more games are starting to adopt this technology, which is awesome. But now they're also, because I don't think they got as much adoption as they would have liked, and so as a result, they're making it to where this is now being made available at the driver level for the computers, or in this particular case, potentially in the Xbox, where it's not necessarily doing it at the image level, it's doing it at the driver level. So it's not going to be as good or as clean as potentially doing it at the image level, but they're at least giving developers an option where how they want to utilize this particular technology. So as you can see, as we scroll down here, you're looking at Radeon Super Resolution, where it's basically doing the upscale after the image has already been produced as opposed to when the image is being produced. So it's not going to be as good as potentially FSR, but it is definitely going to be something that could potentially improve performance and something I'm curious to see how Xbox actually leverages. Next up, we're going to be looking at LG, and this isn't technically an Xbox thing per se, but LG is announcing their C2 TV panels, which are supposed to be brighter, have more options, and they're just going to look greater overall. I personally have a Sony, and I've been enjoying it for the most part, except VRR has been kind of funky on Xbox, but such as that. It has a great image processor, whereas I personally feel that Sony has a better image processor than the LG series does, at least at the C1. G2, for example, goes up to 97 inches. The C2 is going to be looking at 42 inches, but it also gets brighter, has better contrast ratios. It's going to be HDMI 2.1, just like the C1 was. I'm curious to see exactly what kind of options it's going to do and how that is going to better relate to how it's going to utilize the Xbox Series X. So you're going to see here, like, it's going to be able to do 4K 120. It's going to be doing all these different things. So I'm curious to see how it's going to improve over the C1, just besides the brightness and things of that nature. Next up, we're going to take a look at some of the Game Pass announcement that came up. So the big one is going to be right here, Mass Effect Legendary Edition. This was announced just here the other day that is going to be coming to Game Pass. And granted, I already bought it, but so what? Now everybody gets to enjoy this. This actually came out on the 6th. So that's definitely something that if you haven't played Mass Effect, or you just couldn't feel that $60 was a good asking price for games you've already potentially played, something to keep in mind. You're also Outer Wilds is coming back to Game Pass, so that's January 6th. Spelunky 2, you're looking at January 13th. And this other game, I have no idea what it is, but 4-player co-op first-person shooter. So if you're looking for some co-op action, this may end up holding you over for a little bit. So definitely suggest kind of checking it out and see if it's something that's going to make the most sense for you. And last but not least, we kind of already touched on Ubisoft a little bit today, but we're going to add a little bit more to it. So they're also bringing Ubisoft Plus to the Xbox service. Now, it hasn't been clarified how it's actually going to be done, whether it's going to be potentially as an upsell perspective for Game Pass, or if it's going to be its own individual subscription for Game Pass. It hasn't really been identified how that's going to work. For the PC, it's been $14.99 per month to gain access to those particular set of games. Again, I don't know if that's, for me personally, the best value. I don't play a ton of Ubisoft games right now. But if they ended up having it where you have Game Pass Ultimate, and even if it's like a $5 upsell, and then you get access to Game Pass, EA Play, and Ubisoft Plus, I may leverage that. But if it's going to be an additional asking price for this, then that's going to be a really hard sell for me personally. But at least they're giving you the option for Ubisoft Plus to potentially, if you're really into Ubisoft games, to go ahead and dive into them and see if it's something that you're really going to enjoy. Now, those were some of the top stories that I came across over the past week, and some were more interesting than others. We'll kind of have to see how the market plays out, especially in the gaming industry. But make sure to stay tuned. I have a Guardians of the Galaxy review coming up here next week. And make sure to check out the recommended video for you, and I'll see you out there.